not using the hand ropes. Vanity. He showed his ticket to the surly Greek, and then, not looking about him, asking no questions, he continued to move briskly, as though he knew his way around the ship. He turned into a passageway that led nowhere. With comical abruptness, he swung right round on one heel and brought his foot down hard. "Purser," he said to the deck-boards, as though he had just remembered something. "I'll go and see the purser." And so he picked his way to his cabin and bunk. Our sailing was delayed. While their places in the smoking room were being watched over, some of the American schoolchildren had gone ashore to buy food. We were waiting for them to come back. As soon as they did, no giggles, the girls were plain, pale, and abashed, the Greeks became especially furious and rushed. The Greek language grated like the anchor chain. Water began to separate us from the quay, and we could see, not far from where we had been, the great black hulk of the liner Leonardo da Vinci, just docked. The tramp reappeared. He was without his hat and rucksack, and looked less nervous. Hands in trouser pockets already stuffed and bulging, legs apart, he stood on the narrow deck like an experienced sea traveller exposing himself to the first sea breeze of a real cruise. He was also assessing the passengers. He was looking for company. He ignored people who stared at him. When others, responding to his own stare, turned to look at him, he swiveled his head away. In the end, he went and stood beside a tall, blond young man. His instinct had guided him well. The man he had chosen was a Yugoslav who, until the day before, had never been out of Yugoslavia. The Yugoslav was willing to listen. He was baffled by the tramp's accent, but he smiled encouragingly, and the tramp spoke on. "I've been to Egypt 6 or 7 times, gone round the world about a dozen times. Australia, Canada, all those countries. Geologist, or used to be. First went to Canada in 1923. Been there about 8 times now. I've been travelling for 38 years. Youth hosteling, that's how I do it. Not a thing to be despised. New Zealand, have you been there? I went there in 1934. Between you and me, they're a cut above the Australians. But what's nationality these days? I think of myself as a citizen of the world." His speech was like this, full of dates, places, and numbers, with sometimes a simple opinion drawn from another life. But it was mechanical, without conviction. Even the vanity made no impression. Those quivering wet eyes remained distant. The Yugoslav smiled and made interjections. The tramp neither saw nor heard. He couldn't manage a conversation. He wasn't looking for conversation. He didn't even require an audience. It was as though, over the years, he had developed this way of swiftly explaining himself to himself, reducing his life to names and numbers. When the names and numbers had been recited, he had no more to say. Then he just stood beside the Yugoslav. Even before we had lost sight of Piraeus and the Leonardo da Vinci, the tramp had exhausted that relationship. He hadn't wanted company. He wanted only the camouflage and protection of company. The tramp knew he was odd. At lunch I sat with 2 Lebanese. They were both overnight passengers from Italy and were quick to explain that it was luggage, not money, that had prevented them travelling by air. They looked a good deal less unhappy with the ship than they said they were. They spoke in a mixture of French, English, and Arabic, and were exciting and impressing each other with talk of the money other people, mainly Lebanese, were making in this or that unlikely thing. They were both under 40. One was pink, plump, and casually dressed, with a canary pullover. His business in Beirut was, literally, money. The other Lebanese was dark, well-built, with mustached Mediterranean good looks, and wore a 3-piece check suit. He made reproduction furniture in Cairo, and he said that business was bad since the European